Well, the Memphis Safe Task Force is touting thousands of arrests, hundreds of guns seized, dozens of missing children found, and doubling down on their focus to get violent criminals off the streets. But the nonviolent immigrants being detained are having a traumatic effect on families in our area. It's what the task force lists as administrative arrests. Now, the Daily Memphian sat down with the president and CEO of Latino Memphis, Mauricio Calvo, who is the only staff member's name and picture that you will find on the organization's website right now. In Jeff Calkin's interview, Calvo says his staff asked for their names and pictures to be removed because they don't want to be targeted. It's one of the many things he mentions in that interview of how this is impacting immigrant families. Now, V901 is a group made up of volunteers trained to record ICE detentions that are happening around Memphis. They posted on Facebook 3 different ICE raids in one day. It's fine print there, but there was one earlier in the day that took a father away from his wife and baby while driving to the baby's doctor's appointment, leaving the mother and the baby on the side of the road. The second explains the use of force used against 2 homeless people that they searched and ended up arresting one. And then the last ended with 2 women in the Home Depot parking lot in Midtown, where they arrested a single mother who was begging not to be separated from her child. And these are people who go out and film these instances as well. So, Luke, I want to open it to you. I did not get my hands on the physical police reports from these detailed incidents, but from what it is being described, is this humane to you?
Look, when you commit a crime, there are consequences for those actions. If a Memphian commits a crime, commits a burglary, he is separated from his family. If he has kids, he is separated from his family. In this instance, we are restoring order in our community. And like you mentioned, we don't know the arrests, whether they were under additional underlying crimes, additional than crossing the border illegally, working here illegally, using social security numbers illegally. But when we talk about humanity, can we talk about Native Memphians' humanity? Can we talk about what mass low-skilled migration does to our community's most vulnerable population here, the majority of whom are Black? They are suddenly having to compete against jobs with lower wages because we have an influx of cheap labor. They are having to compete against increased housing costs, increased costs to services. One of the examples you gave was a homeless illegal alien. Why do we have homeless illegal aliens on our streets when they shouldn't be here in the first place? So if we want to talk about humanity, what I would like to focus on is the humanity towards our lawful residents, those who are born here, those who are here legally, and our most vulnerable populations. It is unfair for them to have this many illegal aliens on our streets.
Could you explain to me briefly how people who are not committing any crimes, who are not vandalizing, aren't driving while drunk, aren't assaulting people, they just are here for unlawful presence, and they're working, how is treating them as subhuman beings? Wait a minute, how is that restoring order? Don't tell me that it's about the people here in Memphis. We're talking about people who came here, some quite desperate, but most are working, most have families, most are contributing positively to the community, and they're snatched off the street and they're thrown into detention, they're arrested from their children. I mean, the way this is being handled is wrong. It is absolutely wrong. It is against everything that we as decent human beings, as a civilized society, should accept.
I don't think there's anything civil about making our community's most vulnerable residents compete against people who shouldn't be here in the first place for housing and for jobs. We know that wages are lowered when there is an influx of labor.
Where are you getting this for competing for? Where are you getting this for competing for housing? What are you talking about?
Costs in neighborhoods that used to be primarily blue-collar workers, that used to be primarily Black communities, that are now primarily Latino communities, and we know that there is a large percentage of illegal aliens living in those communities. That is not humane. And so what I want to focus on are the Memphians here. Let's focus. We have poor Memphians that we can be helping, and we don't need those services and that money going to people who should not be here in the first place.
Otis,
well,
you got a louder voice than me.
Well, the only thing I want to say about that is Republicans have to go a long way to try to prove that they care about Memphians. That's
We're
just a
cleaning
fact.
up the crime in our city. Look
that-
at the Memphis Safe Task
Yeah,
Force.
okay.
There's no crime. That's
All right, here's the issue that Mauricio Calvo brought up here. He brought up the fact that, to Susan's point, there are law-abiding. Yeah, they are here on it because they came into the country as undocumented, and they are facing administrative charges. That's not the same as being the worst of the worst, and they are being hauled away. And so that's the problem that Mauricio has brought up here. And he brought up two other good points in that Jeff Calkins column. He says he hears all the time that people will tell him, well, why don't you just get in line like everybody else? And then the one that I really glommed onto was, my ancestors came here the right way. Well, there was no right way until an immigration law was passed in 1924. Before that, it was open borders, everybody came in. So you can't tell me that people don't know the history, first of all. And Susan is absolutely right here, Luke. Let's have some empathy, let's have a heart here, and not just round up people in front of babies, in front of older folks, and then haul them off to never be seen again. That is the most inhumane thing I've ever seen. And if you and anybody else is supportive of this, I say shame on you all.
I have to end it here because everything else we're going to say will not make it into the show. I'm sorry, Susan. We went overtime.
We did.
Thank you for watching ABC24 This Week. Thank you to the panelists. Great discussion. We hope you'll join us next week for ABC24 This Week.